Hey guys, what's going on? My name is Anton, and welcome to today's video for Legends of Runeterra. I haven't actually been doing a lot of LOR content recently. I'm going to be trying to get back into it, doing a little bit of LOR and Marvel Snap content side by side. But today we have a balance patch. So we have patch notes to go through. Good start, in my opinion, to me getting back into making LOR content. So it's been a while since I've done one of these. So basically, what I do is I go through and react to all of the balance changes, talk about things that I like, things that I hate, things that I wish were getting nerfed that aren't showing up, things that I wish were getting buffed that are not getting buffed, and my overall impression of the entire balance patch and how I think the meta and what decks will show up. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoy the video. So let's get right into it and start talking about the changes because there are quite a few of them. So first up, we'll start off with the buffs. We got Illaoi here. Not a big change, nothing crazy here. She just gets +1 power, +1/+0. Okay, sure. I mean, like, yeah, she blocks well. That's it. That's the thing. That's the most important thing in my opinion about this change. Illaoi, after Bard got nerfed, has kind of been a joke. Like, Illaoi J4, Illaoi Lux, like Illaoi Demacia basically was kind of a thing. But one of those reasons was Tentacle Smash. Illaoi's spell was just so good. And Golden Aegis was really good rally, basically, is really good. So yeah, Illaoi decks aren't really trying to be that defensive and block that much, but this does help against something like, say, aggro decks, things that are playing like 3/2s and stuff. Legion Rearguard, basically. So, big fan of the buff. Not a big fan of Illaoi, though. Like, I like her as a character. I just don't like the archetype she's played in. Not a big mid-rangey kind of fan. I believe we got a couple other buffs to Illaoi as well. First off, we got Nagakaburos. Very nice. Nice buff here. So, Nagakaburos, 8 mana, 5/8 fearsome. Used to be at the start of the round, spawns 2. Then if your strongest tentacle has 12+ power, create a tantrum basically. Now basically does that when Nagakaburos is summoned as well. Great change. Great change. Initially, what this deck reminds me of what this new card reminds me of, Hydrovine. That's the card. I had to think for a second what the name was. Viego's card, the 7 mana guy who creates mist, encroaching mist or whatever. That card's pretty solid in Viego decks. And has even seen a little bit of play outside of Viego decks because basically getting 2 blockers for summoning 1 unit is pretty good, as evidenced by things like Mirai Warden, House Spider, etc., etc. Will this see play? Maybe. If you need some top end in your Illaoi deck, sure. I feel like a lot of Illaoi decks would rather run things like rallies if they're in Demacia. Maybe some kind of like OTK-ish kind of elusive shenanigans with Ghost if they're in Ionia. Ionia Illaoi was a thing for a while with the 3-drop that lets you get a free attack with a 1-drop, basically a tentacle. But some decks were playing like a 1 of Nagakaburos as just a nice solid top end, so I could see this being a playable card. And the last Illaoi card, I believe, is Tentacle Smash. Tentacle Smash is now 3 mana. I like it. I believe when Tentacle Smash first came out, it was a 4 mana spawn 3 and then strike. And then they nerfed it to what it is today, 4 mana spawn 2. And now it's 3 mana spawn 2. I wouldn't say this is stronger than Tentacle Smash was when it first came out. I still think like if you're not an Illaoi deck, you wouldn't play this card. A lot of decks were playing Tentacle Smash even though they weren't playing any other Tentacle Creator cards. Because it was just good. It was basically 4 mana, summon a 3/3, and make it single combat. Summoning a 2/2, not as good. But if you already have a Tentacle, Sure, this is great. Also, going from 4 to 3 mana, basically costing only 3 mana as a spell is a big thing because that means you can curve out your units and cast a spell using only spell mana. So you could like somehow bank mana on turns 1 through 3, bank 3 mana, cast a turn 4 on curve Illaoi, and Tentacle Smash something that's annoying and work towards an Illaoi level up. So big fan of this change. Kind of keeps Tentacle Smash from being too generic while making it so it's a actual Illaoi card. Next up, we got Jax. I am scared of this change. So the change is Jax, when he has level 2, now has Overwhelm. Light of Acacia already had Overwhelm basically when Jax leveled up. So you might be thinking like, okay, so what? So what if Jax has Overwhelm? In my opinion, and the reason why I think this is super strong is you can now remove Light of Acacia and let Jax keep his Overwhelm and put some other equipment that you like on him. Maybe a Darken weapon, you know, like a Darken Aegis to give him tough. The Scout equipment from Improvise to let him attack multiple times because his attack claws to get big go off twice if you get to Scout attack. So yeah, big fan of it. I think this might be a meta-defining change alongside the other changes to some of these Jax cards. Very, very scared of this. Very terrified of Jax. Very scared. I've played against Jax, and when he does get rolling, he ends games pretty quickly at level 2. Next up, though, Roar of Acacia. I can't blame you for not knowing this card. I'm going to be honest with you. I forgot this card even existed. 6 mana slow spell, summon 2 Acacian mages, equip them with up to 2 equipment in hand that cost 2 or less. Way too expensive. That's my honest opinion. No change to it except for making it a weapon master card so you can put it in Jax decks. I would not put it in a Jax deck no matter what. Maybe Jax Ornn with like a lot of forging, but I'd rather just play the equipment on units I already have and play other things besides Roar of Acacia. And the next card, this card right here is why I think Jax might be meta, Fish Fight. Completely the same, except now it is a Weapon Master. Previously, it was a Demacia card, still is a Demacia card, but it had no Weapon Master tag to it. So if you wanted to play Fish Fight with your Jax deck, you basically were playing Demacia, which meant you were playing Vayne. While it also seems like you would, if you wanted to play basically Demacia, Jax Ornn, you lost Fish Fight. Being able to play Jax Ornn and have Fish Fight is nuts. One of Freljord's weaknesses is they just don't have good removal, right? Like terrible spot removal. Like they have okay AoE because of things like Avalanche, but their spot removal is terrible. They rely on things like Freeze or their other region, their secondary region. And if your secondary region is a Runeterra champ, you hope they have a good removal spell. And now Fish Fight takes that slot. So yeah, terrified of this. Putting what's basically a good slow speed single combat into a region with freezes and troll chance. Very, very scary is all I'm saying. And then speaking of Ornn, Ornn as well has gotten some buffs. Ornn himself, not a big buff, +1/+1. Like that's, in my opinion, not that crazy. I guess if he does lose his equipment, he's not that small, but honestly, this change doesn't really mean much in my opinion. The other changes, other buffs to Ornn's followers are where it's looking scary. First off, Weaponsmith Apprentice. 1/1 to 1/2. Solid. Not dying to a ping is very, very important. I doubt you're going to waste some premium removal like a Mystic Shot on a Weaponsmith Apprentice. So she's almost always going to have her Forge ability go off. This doesn't fix the one problem she has, and that is that she's a bad top deck in the late game, but this is, she's much better now in the early game and much less fragile. So, big fan of the card. Next up, Favorite Artisan is now a 2/3. Same amount of stats, just shuffled around a bit. Used to be a 1/4, now a 2/3. If we include her +1/+1 from Time and Dedication, she's basically a 2 mana, technically 3 mana if you cast Time and Dedication, Badger Bear. A Badger Bear who can spread its stats around and has Forge synergy. So this is actually really, really scary. Blocks really well into aggressive decks too. Blocking, you know, the 2/1s like the Saboteurs. Trading with things like Legion rear guards. So yeah, this is kind of scary. Really, really scared of this card. And our next card, Hearth Blood Mender, loses a stat. One's going from 5/5 to 4/5. Okay, whatever. But now it forges twice. Still heals 3, but forges twice. So a lot of people like to look at Hearth Blood Mender as a 6/6 because of the forge stat. Now you can technically kind of look at it as a 6/7, but that double forge, because you're kind of getting, you're keeping the stats around thanks to forge. So this is a buff. I've seen some people say this is a nerf because it's smaller. No, it's not. I'm sorry to say it's a buff. So I think Jax Ornn is actually going to be really scary. I think there's a lot of potential for Jax Ornn to actually become meta defining. I think it's getting, what, 6 buffs between, let's see, Hearthblood Member, Favorite Artisan, Apprentice, Ornn, Fish Fight, and Jax is 6 buffs. I'm not counting Roar of Acacia because I think that card is bad and will not be played. But if you want to include it, you could go up to 7 buffs. So that's a lot of buffs for an archetype that, in all honesty, was kind of trash and a meme, but getting 6 buffs, it's really hard to evaluate where a deck is going to be after it gets so many strong buffs too. Not just buffs, but strong buffs. So yeah, terrifying to see how this will shape up. Unless you like Ornn and you like I don't know, Weapon Master, Forged Equipment, mid-range decks, in which case you're probably happy. You probably love these changes. Next up, we got a Rise buff. Shard of Reverence used to only give you 2 spell mana. Now it completely fills your spell mana. It's a nice change. Solid buff. Not huge though, but that's fine. Feels like they're trying to be a little conservative with Rise. Rise's gameplay is kind of toxic depending on who you ask, and I will agree. I do like Rise, but I would probably hate a Rise meta. So it looks like they're trying to be a little conservative with Rise and keep him from being too good. Honestly, he kind of sucks though. Sorry, Rise. Next up, what do we got here? We got Shadow Shift. Shadow Shift, the Zed champion spell. Goes down to 2 mana. Whatever. I doubt this is going to matter too much. The only reason I think you'll even care about this change is because you're a Zed Hecarim player, I guess. Like, outside of Zed Hecarim, Zed doesn't really see play. And Shadow Shift as a spell is not a good spell. I'd rather run something like Retreat, Return, or even Recall by itself if I wanted this kind of effect. So yeah, mostly just a Zed Hecarim buff, which, hey, cool, why not? What do we got next? Hate Spike. Now this, one of the few buffs that I'm actually looking forward to. Control buff. Love Control. Favorite archetype. Not many control buffs this balance patch. A little upset about that. Where's my Fangs buff, Riot? Kill Spike. Hate Spike is now dealing 3 damage instead of 2 damage. I think this is really big. Yes, you do need fodder to actually activate it. You know, you need like a unit, whether it's like a Prey or maybe an Undying or whatever. Anything really. It's not that difficult to get. 2 mana is still quite a bit of mana for what is basically a removal spell you want to cast in the early game, but I think it's fine. I think it is a okay spell still. 3 damage hits a lot of things. So yeah, I like the change. Now here's the problem. While I think the spell is good now, the decks that would play this spell, in my opinion, are still gonna suck. Decks that would play this are like Evelyn. Evelyn doesn't really have a home right now. Like Evelyn Viego was the meta Evelyn deck, and then Viego basically got nerfed a lot. A lot of other Shadow Isle decks play this just because it was really good at 1 mana. So I don't know. Maybe like Nora, Vagar, Kindred, Nasus decks maybe. So there are quite a few decks that could look at this, but honestly, out of all of them, Nora Vagar is probably the best, and I could see this being played as a 2-of in Nora Vagar. They have okay removal, but not the greatest removal. They have solid small removal and really good big removal because of things like Pokey Stick, Rope Shot, and Vengeance, and Mini Morph if they want. But like medium-size-ish units, they kind of struggle with that. They have to use things like Darkness and grow the Darkness. So Hate Spike's probably really good for them. What do we got next, though? Master Yi. Master Yi basically got a buff to his level up mechanic. Now he tracks it throughout. All Master Yis basically track the damage that they do. Good buff. Really good buff. I played a lot of Master Yi because I like the guy, especially after they buffed him. Mostly in Karma, but I played him outside of Karma too. So I think this is a really big buff. Karma Yi is not terrible, like with Shadow Isles. You play like Karma Yi, go hard, and Shadow Isles, Ionia control. This buff actually, in my opinion, lets him level up super consistently. And if Master Yi levels up and starts to get at least, I'd say 2 attacks, you're usually winning the game from there. So big fan of this. Another control buff alongside Hate Spike. Love it. And our next buff, Maokai. Not much to talk about. He gets +1/+0. Cool. He can block better. That's it. Not much to say here. Yay. Small buff for Deep, I guess, and Mill, but outside of that, I doubt it's going to matter too much. Next up, Shyvana. Similar buff to Master Yi, where she now keeps track of her level up over the course of the game. They did increase her damage that needs to be dealt from 12 to 16, but makes sense because, again, she's tracking it. She doesn't lose track of it as she dies. I will say this, though. This does kind of make... I don't want to say it's a nerf. I'm not saying it's a nerf. I think it is overall a buff, but it does make it harder to high roll with Shyvana, where, you have like Dragon Chows early, and then you get Shyvanas, you attack with the Shyvana, and then you single combat and level her right away. Can't really do that anymore, or at least not as fast anymore. So, yeah, she can't high roll like that anymore, but overall, I still think it's a buff. Less high roll potential, but more consistency is something a lot of card gamers like. Do I think Dragons is going to be good? No. I think Dragons have a lot of problems. Maybe some Shadow Isles Shyvana, Shadow Isles Demacia Shyvana with the Shadow Isle Dragons that strike your allied units to help level up Shyvana a little bit faster. Things like, Camavoran Dragon. The problem is they don't really they can't play things like Aurelion Soul or Dragon's Clutch to help close out the game. And Golden Age just kind of sucks now. Next up, though, what have we got? We got Tristana. Not much of anything to talk about here. She just got Impact alongside her Quick Attack. That's it. Cool. Tristana used to not be a terrible card, is the thing. She used to be a actually okay card. In my opinion, the strength of Tristana is actually her champ spell. It's Buster Shot, I believe. And the reason I feel like we don't see Tristana too much is the deck she would go in, Bandle mid-range, like go wide mid-range, has just been nerfed so much and not gotten many new things to replace it. Like, let me think here, like Tenor of Terror, Mayor, Telescope, Stone Stackers, etc., etc. Yeah, they've buffed other things, like they buffed Mayor a little bit as well after they nerfed him, but it's just not it. And also, of course, Yordle and Arms getting nerfed. So I think this is like very like a low effect kind of change. Like it's barely, if anything, I doubt it's even going to change much in terms of a Bandle go wide. So yeah, whatever. And next up, we got Lissandra. Now, when you summon Lissandra, the Frozen Thrall she summons is advanced by 2. Frozen Thralls now start at 9 ever since they got nerfed back during the Turbo Thralls meta. So now that Thrall will be at 7. Pretty nice. Lissandra basically has 2 decks. She has Trundle Lissandra Control, TLC, Trundle Lissandra Combo. like combo-y control, whatever. And the other one is Turbo Thralls. I don't think this buff is going to really help out either of those decks. Like, the main reason I think those two decks are bad is I just think they're too slow for the current meta. I think the game is way, way, way too slow, especially for TLC, but maybe Thralls. I could honestly see Thralls being a good deck, because it is hard to interact with Thralls, and the thing is, with Turbo Thralls, I don't know. It's just kind of hard to evaluate here. It's been so long since we've seen Turbo Thralls, and they've had quite a few of their cards get nerfed, alongside some of the Shurima stuff as well in the deck. But I do think Thralls might be able to sneak into tier 2 with this buff. But TLC, I don't think TLC is coming back. I think the Watcher nerf is too big of a nerf. And next up, we got Kayle, the only Targon buff in the entire patch notes, I believe. Lots of changes to Kayle, actually. First off, she got a mana discount. She's now 5 mana instead of 6. That alone is huge. Getting mana discounts in general are usually really strong. Her stat line got lowered from 2.6 to 1.5. However, now she buffs herself alongside the other units. So it's kind of like she didn't actually lose that power. She only lost the health, because she'll just buff herself up to a 2.5 when you summon her. Yeah, I think this is a very powerful buff. I don't think this is enough to bring Kayle up to meta-defining decks. I think if you wanted to play her style of gameplay, like go wide-ish style gameplay, there are better decks than her. She might be the best Targon deck. Like, in my opinion, the best Targon deck at the moment is probably Leona Katarina aggro. Outside of Leona Katarina aggro, Targon's been kind of struggling. Like, Aphelios is doing his thing, but not doing it well. Taric, Pantheon, they've just been missing a lot. So yeah, maybe this will help breathe some life into Targon again, but not the kind of Targon I like. I'm not a big fan of the mid-range, go wide kind of Targon. I'm more of the value invoke loving guy. So while I think it's a good buff for her and strong, I don't care. Sorry, Kayle. And next up, we got Lucian. Oh boy, where to start with Lucian? Overall, I don't think this is a buff. Going from 2 mana to 1 mana, very big. The problem is, he also got a stat nerf from going to 3-2 to 2-1. Yes, 1 mana 2-1 with quick attack is really good. 1 health is really, really bad. Lucian is a guy who wants to level up. He wants to stick around. He wants to see units die or Senna die, and then level up and start, rallying and double attacking. And there are so many pings in this game, between things like Pokey Stick, Group Shot, Vile Feast, Make It Rain, Red Card, etc., etc. I'm just not a fan of this. You might say, like, well, you can cast a spell, like a protection spell like Catch or Sharp Sight to protect him, or Ranger's Resolve. You're not wrong, if that's what you're saying. But the fact that you have to do that now, when before your opponent would have to use 2 pings instead, 2 cards basically, to try to kill Lucian, and now they only have to use 1, and you're basically trading even 1 for 1, is not a good feeling. We kind of saw this happen with Fiora, when Fiora went from being a 3-mana 3-3 to a 3-2. Dies to Mystic Shot, basically, was the statement everyone said, and it turned out to be true. Sure, you could have played things like Twin Discipline, Sharp Sight, etc., to protect her, but the fact you had to do that felt really, really bad. And that's my problem with Lucian. Now, the upside is he comes down faster, and he gets a little extra chip damage in faster. And I've seen people saying, like, oh, he's like Zoe now. Whatever. If I get 1 strike with Zoe, I'm happy, because super cool star chart. 1 strike with Lucian doesn't really do much. It's like, cool, I dealt 2 damage to them. But the other good thing is, being cheaper does let him, I don't know, hold equipment faster. Like turn 1 Lucian, turn 2 Darken Aegis to become a 2-2 quick attack with Tough. Like, that's kind of nice. That's really all I can think of in terms of being a positive, though. So I don't know. Who knows? We'll see, though. I could honestly see this being I could see myself being wrong here and seeing Lucian be really strong, but I highly doubt Lucian will be strong with this change. Next up, though, what have we got here? We got Albus Ferris. Big buff to Albus Ferris. Now, instead of starting at dealing 1 damage, he starts at dealing 3 damage. Basically, they gave him a free Mystic Shot worth of damage. Yeah, nice. Jace Lux loves this buff. Jace Lux is mostly a mid-range deck that's trying to get a lot of, like, chip damage. So, what's basically a free Mystic Shot with the first Albus Ferris attack is great for them. Heimer Jace doesn't really play Albus Ferris too much, but occasionally they'll play him as a one-of, so with the buff, they might even they'll be sure to consider it some more. So I like the buff. Pretty big buff too. Will it bring Jace back into the meta? I don't know. Maybe. And next up, Weight of Judgment. This one, I don't really like it. 4 mana, 3 mana, very nice. Getting a mana discount, it's great. The problem is, it now, instead of dealing 7 damage to a follower, only deals 4 damage to a follower. Kinda sucks. Yes, it's cheaper, but here's the thing. What deck likes this card? It is, I guess you could say, a buff to, maybe not even a buff, but Shurima Tellstones. Weight of Judgment is one of the cards in Shurima Tellstones, so that's nice, but still, I'm not a big fan of this change. It's like, if I wanted 3 mana deal 4, I'd rather just play Rite of the Arcane. You might say, well, what if you don't play Landmarks? Yeah, but here's the other thing. Rite of the Arcane deals 4 to champions as well. So, I don't know. Overall, I think it's a buff, but I think it's barely a buff. And our next card, Dragon Caller, went from 6 to 5 mana. I like it. I played this card a couple of times. 6 mana is just way too slow. 5 mana, which you can argue it's technically 4 mana because of Attune. Kind of nice. More of a mid-range. The card itself is weird too. It's not really a control card. More of a weird, like, spell-based mid-range kind of card, maybe with something with Master Yi. But yeah, Empyrean blocks well. Empyrean gets a lot of chip damage. I'll be trying it out in Master Yi Karma to get both blockers and to get some chip damage to set up my Pack Your Bags. Because it is cheap now. Will it be good? I don't know, but I'll think about playing it like as a 1-of or even a 2-of in my Master Yi Karma decks, though. Control decks. Next up, what do we got, though? That is it, though. Okay, that's it for buffs. Next up, we got nerfs. And first off, we got a Jinx nerf. Her rocket deals 1 less damage. Now, instead of dealing 4, it only deals 3. Still basically red cards your opponent. Cool. And another, basically, well, PNZ nerf in general, discard nerf. Poro Cannon now costs 1 mana. Lulu Jinx is not happy. Lulu Jinx, in my opinion, is probably dead for now with this. Being able, I guess you might just not, you could just technically bank 1 mana, but going 1-drop, 2-drop, 3-drop, specifically 1-drop, 2-drop Lulu, Poro Cannon bringing out a Flame Chompers was insanely good for Lulu Jinx. You might say, like, okay, just don't play a 2-drop or skip turn 1. Yeah, of course, but, you know, you'd like to play Zaunite Urchin. You like to play Zaunite Urchin to try and find some Lulus into Boom Baboon to have the Chomper, etc., etc. So, makes your early game curve a little less explosive and consistent. As for Jinx, though, I think Jinx is fine. Yes, Jinx Lulu is gonna suck, but Jinx Echo is still fine. Like, yeah, it's a nerf, the rocket, but it will not affect Jinx Echo that much, in my opinion. Next up, what do we got? Alright, we got Quietus. What's basically these next 2 cards are a couple of control nerfs, in my opinion. I love Quietus. I'm just saying that because I am gonna be honest with you, I am a little biased when it comes to control. even though I love Quietus and I love Control, I have said multiple times, Quietus is a little too strong and a little too good at what it does, which is removing units. And of course, the equipment destruction is nice too. So what they've done is they've changed how it works. So now it will total up, it will check the unit and total up its health and power. And if the unit has 4 or less power and health, then it will kill it. It still has a destruction, equipment destruction too, so that's nice. There's a card in Magic called Cut Down, which is basically the first part of Quietus, except it targets, it hits 5 and less total power and toughness, power and health, whatever. And it's really good. Now, here's the thing. Cut Down is also basically a fast speed spell. It's an instant speed. So I don't think we can really compare Quietus and Cut Down too much because different spell speeds, first off, and Quietus whiffs on so many things. I think someone did a chart out there and I looked at the chart. I think this change to Quietus means it kills... there are 25 champions that no longer die to Quietus at level 1. So, think like a Braum, Soraka, Tahm Kench, Elise, etc., etc. That's a lot. Now, here's the thing, though. You can chip away at a unit's health to try and kill them with Quietus. Using things like Vile Feast. On the other hand, that also means health buffs can save a unit from dying to Quietus, so something like Troll Chant. Overall, it's a nerf. I've seen some people try to argue and say it's not a nerf, it's a side grade. It's a nerf. I'm sorry. This is just a nerf. Not being able to kill things like kill strong backline units like Soraka or Veigar is a nerf, in my opinion. That was what Quietus's strength was killing backline, big health, high health backline units like Veigar, Azir, etc., etc. Still, though, it needed to get nerfed. And our next change, Eye of Nagakaboros, doing the same thing it did before, but now it is only focus speed. Aggressive decks don't really care about this change. Decks that actually cared about using it for a burst speed blocker care the most, so control decks, Bilgewater control. Rise decks care about this, so things like Twisted Fate decks care about this. Like I already said it, Rise decks, so kind of sucks for them. But yeah, like Pirates and Illaoi are just like, yeah, whatever, okay. And next up, we got Katarina. I'm going to be honest with you, this nerf makes me mad. Because in my opinion, it doesn't do much. She lost 1 power. She's now a 2-2. Okay. This kind of buff really makes me feel like they're just scared to nerf Gwen Katarina too much because they don't want Katarina to become a joke again like she was for the majority of LOR's lifespan. The thing is, no one's playing Katarina because she's a 3-2. You could argue she has the Quietus now. Okay, sure, whatever. Also, things like Troll Chant and Scrying Sands will prevent her from striking, but all you care about with Katarina is that she strikes. You don't care about her power. Like, yeah, she hits a little less hard, but okay, whatever. Like, Katarina's played in decks because you care about the Blade's edges she creates and the rallies. That's it. The stats, damage, the pressure she puts on from her stat line is just a little extra. And that's it for the nerfs. So how many nerfs is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 nerfs. Only 5 nerfs. Not that many nerfs. Kind of was expecting a few more nerfs here. I believe there is another 2 nerfs that aren't mentioned here. I believe Aatrox and Kayn are also getting nerfed. I believe Kayn's nerf is that he has to have 4 cultists to draw himself. Well, Aatrox's nerf is the 3 Darken have to be unique. They can't be the same 3 Darken. Like, you can't just play Darken Bloodletters 3 times to summon or to draw Aatrox. So that's nice. So it's a few more nerfs than are shown here. And last up, we got 2 new cards. First off, we have Soul Cleave. This card has people talking. 3 mana slow spell. Kill an ally to summon 2 ephemeral copies of it. I don't think this is a good card. I think this is bait and mostly a meme. Yes, there are a lot of applications for it. The big one that a lot of people talk about is Viego. You have Soul Cleave in your deck, you have Viego on the field, you Soul Cleave Camivoran Soldier to summon 2 more Camivoran Soldiers, and you get 3 Encroaching Mists because of Viego. And that should theoretically level up Viego because the summon copies are ephemeral. That's a lot of mana. That's very clunky to do as well. You need to have Viego on the field. You need to have Soul Cleave. And you also need a Camivoran Soldier on the field. And on top of that, you need your opponent to not be able to interact with you, either by just killing the soldier or killing Viego. That's a lot of ifs. Now, besides Viego, what else do we have? Anivia. Anivia's cool. Like, I like Anivia. Anivia is one of the champions that I really, really love. Anivia is so slow. Every time I consider playing Anivia, my first initial thought is, why would I ever play Anivia when I could just play Field of Rush if I wanted to play Shadow Isles Freljord? Outside of for fun reasons, of course. One of Anivia's biggest problems, I feel, is just the egg is too fragile, being a 0/1. So yeah, I'm not a fan of this in Anivia. The deck, the idea that I think is the most likely to see any kind of meta relevance is Scion. Like Shadow Isles, Noxus, Scion, Soul Cleaving Scion to get multiple Scions and get, well, lots of rallies. So I think there might be 1, maybe 2 decks that are actually good with this card, but I feel like it's getting overrated too much. Now, next card. The next card I think is just bad. Castigate is a 7 mana slow spell. Kill all followers. Shurima card. Okay. So it's basically a more restrictive Ruination. Ruination itself is not a good card. Not killing champions is terrible. I really don't understand. First off, it's in Shurima, which is not really known for its control. So yeah. Like, what deck wants is Sundisk? Maybe Sundisk would play it as a 1-of, but I feel like Sundisk would rather just, you know, work towards actually activating Sundisk. Maybe some kind of like Zillion Shellfolk deck, perhaps? Like action decks probably don't want this. Severe doesn't want this. Nasus? Like Nasus Kindred? Because, you know, technically you have Nasus on the field. You cast Castigate, Nasus lives. Everything else gets slain to buff Nasus up. But it's so slow. Like, this is such an expensive card. And again, not hitting champions I think is too restrictive. I'm not saying it should hit champions. I'm just saying it not hitting champions is bad. So yeah, I think it's a bad card and unplayable. But I do like that they're adding new cards in balance patches. Very big fan of that. And I believe that is it. Some Path of Champion changes too. I don't play Path, so whatever. And then some more notes here, like competitive stuff is starting soon. Beta season for competitive, daily tournaments, daily whatever, daily champion, gauntlet, whatever things. And some bug fixes, but I'm pretty sure these bug fixes are mostly just quality of life stuff, nothing that was like game winning, game losing kind of bugs. And that is it. That is all the changes to the cards, all the buffs, all the nerfs, and the new cards. A little disappointed that Red Gwen didn't get hit harder, specifically Foyer. Sure, Katarina got nerfed and Quietus got nerfed, but I really wish they had hit Foyer or maybe the Dancer. Maybe make the Dancer a 35 or something. But it's whatever. Other thing is, like, I really wish they had buffed control a little bit more, like 1, maybe even 2 cards more for control. Like Fangs. I really wish Fangs was a 3-2 or even a 3-3, but sadly, it seems like Riot just doesn't care about Invoke anymore. And with like how few Invoke support cards we've gotten in the past few sets and buffs, it just seems like they don't care about Invoke anymore, sadly. But yeah, I feel like the meta is gonna. My initial impression will be is Feel the Rush and Turbo Thralls will be meta. One of the two will be meta. Maybe Plunder will be meta as well, but not like a tier 1 meta deck. And I think Jax Ornn will be a meta deck. And Jax Ornn is the reason why I think Plunder will be a meta deck, because Plunder, in my opinion, should theoretically be good against that deck, or at least solid against that deck. Not so good against Ornn though, now I think, or Jax. But I still think the deck will be, I still think Plunder will be good. They didn't really get any nerfs unless you want to count the Eye of Nagakaburos nerf, which barely matters for them in all honesty. Maybe also Illaoi. I think Illaoi might have a chance to be a solid tier 2 deck, like Illaoi Vayne. Illaoi Demacia was a thing before, and I think it'll be a thing again, just not with J4 or Lux, but instead Vayne this time. So yeah, that'll be it for today. Hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you enjoyed hearing my thoughts on this balance change. Would love to hear your opinion on this change. I've seen both sides. I've seen some people loving this balance change, and I've seen some people hating the balance change. If you ask me where I stand, I'm kind of indifferent, in all honesty. I don't hate it, but I don't love it. I'm just like, yeah, it nerfed some stuff I cared about that I was hoping to get nerfed, but the stuff it buffed, not much I cared about except for like Master Yi. Like Master Yi is the only thing I really care about that got buffed. Hate Spike, I guess, is nice. But I'd love to hear your opinion on this balance patch. And if you guys just enjoyed the video in general, I'd love if you could leave a like or a comment down below. It always helps me and always helps out the channel. And if you guys want to keep up with the Legends of Runeterra content, you can always go and subscribe to the channel as well. Also, if you want to watch me play some Legends of Runeterra, I'm going to be playing it a lot because of the balance changes and because of those competitive daily tournament things going on. You can go and check me out over on Twitch at twitch.tv/Zeneton, where I stream pretty much every single day. Anyway, though, with that all said and done, thank you all once more for watching this video. And until I see you guys in the next one, bye!